This lecture is concerning the 7 levels of consciousness. A new commandment I give unto you, that ye love one another as I have loved you, that ye also love one another. It is instructing us to literally become the essence of love, to be love, to embody the definition of love from a spiritual perspective. We should emit love easily. But what is love? Love, or agape, is defined by its actions and attitudes, described as patience, kindness, not envious, not proud, not rude, not self-seeking, not easily angered, keeping no record of wrongs, rejoicing with truth, and always protecting, trusting, hoping, and preserving. And so we can conclude that love is a wide range of elevated frequencies. It is divine. How are we going to become love? Remember, love was originally defined as God. God is love. So then we must vibrate in the frequency of love. And this video, this lecture is going to show you how to do that. Divine love operates beyond conditions, seeing inherent worth, offering unwavering acceptance, and inspiring selfless actions. So that beyond condition, that's the most important part. In essence, divine love is the ultimate perfect love. True love is divine love and is an elevated frequency. Frequency is the level of our conscious existence. The 7 planes of consciousness is what we are currently aware of. However, awareness is relative. The first plane, or the bottom plane, the one on the very bottom, is called the physical plane. The physical plane is the most palpable, and it is a survival-oriented consciousness. And that is what we find here in the material world, which is ruled by physical laws. The physical world, every aspect of life is superficial, even deep victimhood, terror, chronic fear, baseline anxiety that never completely goes away, and spontaneous outbursts of rage when insecurity or when security is threatened. And all of these thoughts are on the physical existence. Our frequency in the physical plane is vibrating between 20 hertz and 100 hertz. And that is because your focus, your whole existence is all wrapped up in the physical world, what you can see, taste, touch, smell, your 5 senses. Then number 2, that next plane of existence that you should be graduating to is called the astral plane. In the astral plane, this is seen as a blueprint for reality, a sea of potential, or a transit zone, often depicted as a vast starry ocean where thoughts manifest as reality, allowing travel, exploration, and connection to other realms or even the afterlife. So keep in mind, the level of consciousness found on the material plane cannot even conceive anything past itself. Beings in the lower frequencies will not have the intelligence of the higher frequencies and will therefore conclude that these things don't exist, or that these things are fantasies, because they cannot perceive them. They are in a lower state of existence. I don't care if they go to church every Sunday. I don't care who it is in your life. If they cannot perceive past those five senses, they are vibrating in a lower state of existence. Nevertheless, the astral plane is where we create. It connects to our emotions, desires, and dreams, and sometimes is described as being or being next to the physical world in location, being next to the physical world. And this is where the ego is sometimes trapped. And it believes that its self-worth is tied to external validation. Now remember, the material plane or the physical plane is all about the external. So these two planes, the astral plane and the physical plane, are very closely connected. Once we are conscious of the astral plane and we begin manifesting our desires and dreams, we then interchange our accomplishments for the self. So in the astral plane, you're elevated a little bit, and this may even tie into, so everything here in this astral plane, when we talk about like your accomplishments, if you're vibrating in this frequency, your accomplishments are going to be how you identify yourself. You're going to identify yourself by your relationships. You may identify yourself by the degree that you went to college and received. Your value in this consciousness is determined by how you compare to others. You feel superior due to promotions. You want to be seen as successful and approved. So you see, this is where I was at church. People got caught up with, I'm blessed by God. I'm favored by God because I got a new car. I'm favored by God because I got a new house. I'm favored by God because I have money in my pocket. Now, you may experience the attributes of competition, and competitiveness, and these things are associated with jealousy, pride, shame, judgment, feeling that you are not enough and never will be, always becoming, never being. Okay, so even though this is a step up, you're coming into some extension of awareness, yet you could be snagged by what the world calls success, what the world calls advancement. And it will all be still material, because if you look at this, like on this astral plane, you're drawn into the success that is dictated or that is defined by the culture. And it's basically drawing you back towards that material plane. And so this level of consciousness is found between 100 hertz and 175 hertz. So you're still vibrating a little lower. Now, that third plane of consciousness, or that third level of consciousness, is the mental plane. And this is the realm of thought and ideas, where consciousness works as thought, independent from the physical brain. This is the place where esoteric thought, which is intended for or likely to be understood by only a small number of people with a specialized knowledge or interest. So the esoteric thought, this is really what in my research, this is what I found the Bible was. And the Bible is an esoteric teaching. And in that, it just means that there are like a lot of people who pick up their Bible and they read it from a material plane frequency. They read it from a literal understanding. When it's esoteric, it just means that it's written in a way that many people, it's not even written for the average person. It's written for the student who is on a spiritual journey. And so you may find some roadblocks with that, because your ability to understand, you're going to need to elevate your frequency to understand some of these things. And yes, elevated frequency will give you a higher level of overstanding. You will be able to perceive at a higher range. In many esoteric systems, the mental plane is considered a higher level of existence than it is. It's higher than the physical plane, and it's higher than the astral plane. And a person's level of consciousness and spiritual development determines their ability to access and interact with it. So in order to even come into this level, you're going to have to raise up to the mental plane. You may become religious at this level of consciousness. Here, you have transcended the small self and are about us. This is the mental plane. This is the mental plane where you have graduated from it's all about me to it's all about us. You feel noble and elevated. You may divide the world into righteous categories: us versus them, right versus wrong, righteous anger, belonging. You are convinced that fighting for your group is holy, good, and godly. But inadvertently, you impose the conflict energy onto the world. You fight racism, sexism, stay focused on external enemies, never looking within. This is religion. This is what religion does to you. Now, I'm not saying every one of you that is tied up in religion that this has happened to you, but the vast majority of you're basically looking out. You're looking at everybody else, and you're almost taught that if you go within, that somehow is against God. If you sit down and meditate about who you are, what why you are, what it was all about, what you did, what you said, your behavior, somehow religion has confused this with being against God, that God does not want you to look within. So that's the fallacy of it. But at this level, you really need to, you really are in that state of mind where you have to fight. And I've been here. I've been Pentecostal. I went through that teaching to where I was fighting. You go in and you fight the devil. That's the teaching. Even in the Christian, basic Christian, well, all that's Christian, but the Christian religion, it does teach you to fight the devil. And, this could be a problem. I'm telling you, this could be a big problem for you frequency wise. And the main thing is your frequency. It's not so much about being true to a religion. It's about being true to yourself and being true to the one who created you. At the level of the mental plane, you have the conscious awareness to see problems, but you're not able to ascend them because you're covered. You've covered the divine love within yourself with belief. You've covered love with belief. You've interchanged love with belief. And 99% of humanity live their entire lives cycling through these three states: material, astral, and mental levels of consciousness. They circulate between those three. And the mental plane vibrates between 150 hertz to 200 hertz. So I'm going to note here that the frequency between these conscious levels never rise above 200 hertz. And 200 hertz in frequency is very low. Now, I'm here to tell you that everything is energy, and energy carries frequency. So your words, your thoughts, your behaviors, all of that is energy, and each one of those carry frequency. And if your words and your thoughts are here in this material or the physical plane, the astral plane, or the mental plane, your vibration is low, your frequency is low. You're in that 200 hertz range, and so you're gonna keep climbing, because it's all about graduation, it's all about elevation. And when you graduate, you're going to come up to the fourth plane, which is the spiritual plane. The spiritual plane is a higher realm of spiritual consciousness, sometimes encompassing things like dreams, visions, and a deeper connection to existence. This is the level of consciousness where we receive divine guidance and we enter into a higher level of knowing on the spiritual plane. Our perception shifts because we see more of the bigger picture. However, this is where our frequency is tested the most. And your frequency is tested because likely to arrive at this spiritual plane, you've already gone through a good number of lessons. And once the lesson is over, then you're tested. On the spiritual plane, you increase your metacognition, which is the ability to observe your own thoughts. You realize that you are not your job. You are not your thoughts. You are not your emotions. You are not your personality. You are not even your history. When you get to this level, you have the wherewithal to review your own essence. And you think that's a simple thing, but thousands, probably millions of people never do that. Never review their own, comments, words, thoughts, behaviors. But at this level, you start seeing your own programming, your own limiting beliefs. You see the fear programming, the emotional manipulation. You see control mechanisms, and the veil has become thin at this level. This level is considered dangerous because this is where many souls turn around and go back into the lower states. Your frequency may be tested on this plane to determine what is true about you. You may face sudden financial crises. You may face relationship breakdowns, family problems, health issues. Social isolation may intensify. This is the time where you may go through the dark night of the soul, where everything in your life starts crashing. You feel like you're losing your mind, but what you're losing is your programming. And this is the place where your elevated frequency will cause you to not be a good fit for your life. This is the place, this plane right here, your spiritual plane. This is the plane where you could literally lose everything around you. You could lose your house, your car, your job, because the testing may come in to see where your frequency is. And then, it's a tough test because you have other people saying, other beings saying, well, God must not be blessing you, or what did you do? Remember the story of Job? That's the situation that you're in this level of consciousness, which is the spiritual plane. And at this point, you lose your life, the life around you of the lower frequencies, because you can't relate to it anymore. The pressure that they will put on you is to conform to your old ways, or you will risk losing your place in society. Now, this state of existence ranges in frequency between 200 hertz and 310 hertz. The next plane is the causal plane. The causal plane in some systems, this is the plane that connects the spiritual and mental realms, associated with the causal body. The causal layer is the last layer of the perceived individual. And this is the plane that is bridging us to the void, or bridging us to the whole of existence. This is where stable observation is achieved with the understanding that you are playing a character in this life. This is the gap between what happens to you and how you respond. You become undesirable to the lower frequencies. You may, when you get to this place, if you're married, you may lose your husband or your wife, because if they haven't been growing with you, they will not be able to stand you when you get into these elevated planes. You can feel emotions without being controlled by them. You deal with challenges, but there is an inner stillness that nothing can touch. You don't absorb others' opinions. You clear mental noise to hear your own reality speaking. You experience profound peace regardless of external circumstances. At this level, you are like a virus that has become immune to the host. The system will test you to confirm that you are maintaining this frequency level. You respond from centered awareness. People may escalate their drama to try to pull you back into those lower levels of consciousness. But at this level, you have achieved sovereign awareness, and you will be vibrating between 310 hertz to 350 hertz. The monadic plane is a plane of life or spirit, sometimes seen as the highest level of consciousness, source consciousness, or gnosis. On this level, experience source itself. Time collapses. You recognize yourself as one who has been playing all the roles. You become aware that you have always been source consciousness. So that's the spark of the divine. You become aware of the spark of the divine within your own heart chakra. You learn who and what your natural self is, your natural way of being at the core, and just be your natural self despite what others may think about you. This is sometimes called the true self or inner God. It is the divine source from which the soul and the personality originate, representing a transcendental unity or oneness with the divine that exists within every individual. This is Christ consciousness, which is a frequency vibrating between 350 hertz to 500 hertz. The seventh and last plane is called the divine plane. And this is the highest plane, representing pure divine consciousness or the source of all creation. Now, often this is associated with gods, angels, and ultimate truths. This is unity consciousness, the dissolution of separation, and complete indoctrination of divine love essence, which includes wisdom and spiritual intelligence, among other higher energetic fields. The boundaries dissolve. There is only one consciousness. At this level, you have transcended the matrix. You see through the illusion. You understand that consciousness creates physical reality, not the other way around. This means that if the culture, if the collective decides that they are going to think differently, to get everybody to shift, then our reality would be different. And even if you take that to a more personable level of where you are, if you shift, if you decide to shift your way of being to a higher way of being, your frequency will elevate and your world will settle in around you at that frequency. So it will be a higher level or a higher frequency of existence, and you will see things differently. You will perceive things differently. And I know you can't even think about that at that, when you're in those lower levels, you can't even think that things could be different or that there is a higher way of thinking. And so this is something that is definitely attainable. This state of being must be carefully managed, because while you're in the human body, it may be challenging to maintain this level of elevation. But I'll say this: what will make this easier if it's true. If you are truly vibrating, this vibration is 500 to 700 hertz. Now, if you're truly vibrating in that range, this will not be a difficult thing to maintain. So every level of consciousness has a frequency range. And as you can see, you do not have to be considered a bad person to be trapped in the material plane where you put all of your attention and your focus on the physical world. Proper meditation will automatically raise your frequency. All you have to do is meditate. Studying quantum physics, studying metaphysics or spirituality will also raise your frequency. And your frequency change, that you will step away, but you won't step away feeling like you're better than somebody. You won't step away feeling like, they're wrong and you're right. Or feeling like, oh, God loves me more. That's fallacy. I promise you, that does not exist. And it's operating as a delusion. But if you find that you are not able to exceed the religious teachings that cause you to hate someone else, the religious teachings that cause you to disregard someone else, or to kill someone else, or to destroy someone else, or curse them with your words, with your thoughts, with your hatred. You curse others and then and see yourself as separate or better. If this is what you're choosing, it's your choice, and you cannot really be judged by others for making that choice. But the consequences of that choice is that you will remain between the material and the spiritual planes. You will not get out of here in those low frequencies. Low frequencies do not leave and travel into the higher realms. Now, that's the law. And I know that religion doesn't necessarily connect itself to universal law, but it has to factor it in. And it does factor it in with a whole lot of other things. And so you kind of have to pick through it. But I promise you, if you wallow in hatred, if you sit here and stay planted in your foolishness, okay, your jealousies, your competitiveness, your never being satisfied, your greed, your oversex, your disregard for someone else's personal space, attacking them physically, verbally. If you are doing this, I don't care how many Sunday services you choose to attend, your frequency is low. You will not leave this realm. You will not leave the third density with that foolishness. I don't care what they told you. I promise you, you will incarnate until you get your frequency up. These are the things that will keep you between the material and the spiritual planes. That's all I simply want to say. Thank you for attending this lecture, and we look forward to hearing from you soon. Godspeed.